Hello and welcome. This is Dr. Sean Yoder, and today we're doing EC201 Microeconomics Chapter 1. So thank you very much for coming, and let's get into it. So, economics. The studies of how individuals and societies choose to use the scarce resources that nature and previous generations have provided. Yay. Now, Ray Fair, he teaches at Yale University, argues that the key word in the definition is choose, and he's got a point. Economics is a study of choices of people, governments, businesses, their behavior. So it anchors economics in the social sciences. However, I would disagree with Ray Fair on this point. For me, the key word here is not choose, it's scarce. Let me explain. So you're going to learn throughout the term a lot of different things about me. For example, I am highly addicted to Starbucks coffee. One year during Lent, I decided I would give up coffee for Lent. The students that term revolted at the end and said, I will never give up coffee again. So I'm highly addicted to Starbucks coffee. But then secondly, I like Lamborghinis. Okay? It is my personal belief that I need about 34 Lamborghinis. One for every day of the month, because it's totally improper to drive the same Lamborghini multiple times a month. And then you need some for special events, because you can't pull up to a special event like a wedding or something in your normal Lamborghini. You need to have some special ones. So 34 Lamborghinis. Now, lamentably, a college professor's salary, you do not generally make enough money to buy 34 separate Lamborghinis. I know it's a travesty. Total social injustice. Totally kidding. If I had all the money in the world, I wouldn't have to make a choice. I just buy the Lamborghinis and have my Starbucks coffee and everything's great. But because my money is limited, I'm forced to choose. Do I save my money and put it towards a Lamborghini eventually? Or do I buy Starbucks coffee with the money? That choice is brought about only because of the scarcity. So without scarcity, there is no choice. Now, during this term, we're going to have different fundamental concepts. We're going to go through all of them. We're going to talk about them. These are opportunity cost, marginalism, efficient markets. We'll go through these. Now, opportunity cost. This is the best alternative that we forgo or give up when we make a choice or decision. Opportunity cost is not just the cost of the decision, what you pay in cash. There's often something else. Over a decade ago, for those of you who are listening to this and who haven't met me in person, I'm old. Over a decade ago, I came across an old friend that I knew back in high school. She had, our lives took very different paths. She had gotten married and that didn't work out. She ended up remarrying. And she had just had her first child in this new marriage. And her husband at the time was beating her and then started beating the baby. Her sisters got her out of there, moved her back half the country away, got her court protection orders, etc. So when I came across my friend, let's be clear, her life was upended and devastated, and she was, I don't know what to do. She was like, Sean, I don't know what to do. I'm a single mom now. I don't have a job. How am I going to feed my kid? How is this going to work? And I was talking to her. I said, well, why don't you go back to college? Why don't you go back to school and get a degree? And she said, I can't afford it. You know, and let's be clear, I've been in college forever. I'm like, well, we can fix that. I mean, your tuition and books, I mean, we can get grants and scholarships. It'll get paid for. It's not going to be an issue. And she said, Sean, you don't understand. Yeah, fine. Tuition and books are free. How am I going to feed my baby? How am I going to pay rent eventually? How am I going to pay for the heat? What she was saying is the opportunity cost of not working was the barrier for her to go to college, not the tuition and the fees. So notice when you look and study people's behavior, a lot of people at the surface just look at the cost. Oh, it's cheap. Oh, it's expensive. But cheap and expensive depend on your point of view. But in her case, the opportunity cost of going to college in her mind was her infant not having food. And there's no way she would have gone to college. We were able to get her an associate's degree, and she has a job and her own place, and that infant is now a teenager, and anyway, they're doing well. But understand, opportunity cost is more than the price of the good. It's something else. We see opportunity cost whenever we study. So India, the country of India, a lot of it is rural, and a lot of the people who live in India actually work in agriculture. They're farmers. They grow crops. So when there's a lot of rain in India, the crops grow a lot. And when the crops grow a lot, there's more profit for the family. However, the opportunity cost of sending children to school. Now, in India, normally in large parts of the world, you actually have to pay a fee to go to school, even K to 12. The fees cover the teachers and the books and other things. But even if school is free, whenever the crops are abundant, there's not enough people to work the harvest. So the kids are kept home in order to help their families with the harvest. So 2 million kids across rural India, economists found that when there's high rainfall, there are lower math test scores. Why? Because kids aren't going to school as much. Now, you might think that this is only a thing in India, but it's not. I used to work at the University of Maine. And over in Maine, if you were to go to college at the University of Maine, you know how when you have the Thanksgiving break in the United States at the end of fall? Over there, there's actually a different break. There's a fall break like the spring break. They're on the semester system, which is 16 weeks long. But they actually have a fall break. And it was literally so that college students could go back home and help their families in rural Maine with the harvest. And thus, you see opportunity costs. The university realized in order to get kids to be able to come to school, they had to be able to go home and work the harvest. You know, sometimes in business or in life, you see things and you're kind of surprised. It's like, why is that? Why are people acting that way? Why are things doing that? And a lot of times it's the opportunity cost. And when you actually sit down and understand the opportunity cost, you can really grasp people's behavior. Second one is this idea called marginalism. process of analyzing the additional costs or incremental costs or benefits arising from a choice or decision. Okay, great. What does that mean? All right. So imagine it's a really hot day, and I mean hot, scalding hot, burning up hot. And you walk into Dairy Queen. You open the door, and the air conditioning blasting this. You're like, oh. And you walk inside, and you're like, oh, thank goodness. You walk up to the counter. First guy on the counter says, what may I get you? And you say, I'd like 45 ice cream cones, please. Do you do that? Do you buy 45 ice cream cones at a time? I know I don't. Well, maybe you might. I mean, you're probably cool. You probably have an entourage, a bunch of peeps with you, but you got to look after it. But for me, man, I'm just going by myself. And I can't eat 45 cones. People tend not to make big jumps in decisions. How do they tend to make decisions? Well, I'll buy one, eat that, see if I want the second, then buy the second. And then after I consume that, if I want the third, I'll buy the third. Most people don't go 0 to a large number. That's marginalism. Now, we're going to see this term marginal everything. Marginal revenue, marginal cost, marginal utility, marginal this, marginal that. The key idea is this. You're going to be analyzing what the people are doing over and over and over again. If the benefits are doing it are worth more than the cost they have to pay to do it, they're going to do it. If the costs are bigger than the benefits, then they're not going to do it. The last one is called efficient markets. And this is for my money, this is among the most worthless statements in the textbook. A market in which profit opportunities are eliminated almost instantaneously. Okay. I'll explain to you what that means, but I'll be honest with you, I call bullpucky here. Efficient markets is an assumption economists make, and it's not always true. Here's how this works. So one day I was going to teach in class. Now, for those of you who have not had me before and don't know me, I am, shockingly, not originally from Oregon. I know. Who would have guessed? Now, I don't know what it is since I've moved to the Pacific Northwest and to the West Coast, but I'm convinced there's some kind of law somewhere that says pretty much every grocery store is required to have a coffee shop inside of it. In large parts of the United States and even the world, this is not a thing. We have coffee shops and we have grocery stores. But here in the Pacific Northwest, they went and squished them together. Okay. So, I'm highly addicted to Starbucks coffee. I was on my way to class, and usually I stop off and pick up coffee on the way to class. I call it jokingly my anti-student abuse nectar. So I go and pick up my coffee. I was on my way to class, and I hadn't had my coffee yet. However, that day in class, I was bringing pizza and some sodas for the class, and I needed to get some paper plates and some disposable plates and some cups because I wasn't going to buy a can of soda for everybody. I was just going to get a few 2 liters of different types and do that. So I went to the grocery store, walked into the grocery store, and I'm immediately greeted by this kiosk-looking thing that is a coffee shop, and it was a Starbucks kiosk. And I had this little party in my head. I'm like, hey, I haven't had my coffee yet. Oh, good, I can knock 2 birds. Right. So I walk up to this kiosk, person behind the till, may I take your order? I ordered my coffee. Now, the thing is you got to be careful with Starbucks when you order your coffee. You can order the same drink different ways, and you'll pay totally different prices. There's like this Starbucks ordering code, and it's all in the way they punch it into their till. So I placed my order, and understand, I'm not the most creative guy. There's basically 2 or 3 drinks that I order. I, for the most part during term, order the exact same thing every single day. I know how much it costs. I mean, I've got the people at my Starbucks trained. I just walk up. They just hold the cup out because I pre-ordered it. I walk up, grab it. They say, have a nice day. I kind of growl because at that point I'm pre-caffeinated, so it's really not safe for anybody. But, you know, some of you are like pointing at your friends or maybe going, oh, dude, wait a minute, my friends are like totally like that. Yeah. Anyway, I'm pre-caffeinated, so, you know, I kind of growl back or mumble, have a nice day too, or something, and go on. But I order the same thing. I know how much it costs. I see the same number every single day. So this day, I ordered my coffee. They rang it in, and the number was different. It was higher. I'm like, huh? What's up with that? Paid them, and they're like, would you like your receipt? And I'm like, yes, I would. You know, I'm thinking in my head, okay, what happened here? Did they ring it in wrong? What went on? And I looked at the way they put in the order, and it was put in correctly, the way that normally saves money. I go, huh? Took the receipt, put it in my wallet. The next day, I went to my normal Starbucks, you know, and I'm like, hey, would you mind giving me the receipt for that? I'd like that receipt. And they're like, oh, yeah, sure. They printed it up for me. And now I have both receipts in my hand, and I'm studying, like, you know, like you do cramming for a test. I'm studying, comparing and contrasting the differences of these 2 receipts. I go, yeah, they charged me more here. The next time I was at that grocery store, I walked in and I said, hey, what's the story here? What's the difference in these 2 receipts? Person behind the counter, oh, it must be a mistake. It must be a mistake. Hold on a minute. Let me get the manager comes out. Show them the receipts. You know, why are these different? Manager looked at the receipts and goes, oh, yeah, this other receipt, the one you normally go to, that's a company store. That's owned by the Starbucks Corporation. We actually own this, and we're kind of franchised sort of thing, and we actually charge a higher rate. They go, oh, okay, well, thank you. Now, here's the rub with that. Here's the issue with that, okay? There's a grocery store. From that grocery store, there's a company store, Starbucks. It's about 300 steps. And yes, I did count. 300 steps. Now, understand, guys, I'm an economist, which is a very polite way of saying I'm cheap. Okay? I go walking down the streets with my children. I will stop in the middle of the walkway and I go, whoa, hold on. I feel a disturbance in the force. The kids will look around and there are coins on the ground, picking them up. I haven't been able to go full economics Jedi yet, where I like go walk over to a drinking fountain or one of these water fountains and just hold my hand out and go, oh, and all the coins come straight into my hand. You know, what is it? Grogu? Like Grogu can? Those of you who know what that is, good on you. For those of you who don't worry, it's not important. But I haven't been able to go full economics Jedi. But the second I do, there's not going to be a water fountain with any coins in it anywhere. Right? 300 steps. I'm cheap. If there was a sign that said, save money, walk 300 steps that way, get it for a lower price, I would have done it. Now, maybe if this Starbucks here was full up and there was a huge line, maybe I would have paid the higher price. But I didn't know. Now, Efficient Market says I would have known and made an informed choice. Yeah, I had no clue. And the vast majority of the people who buy coffee probably at that Safeway, sorry, it was a Safeway, I try not to mention their name, don't really know. Let me give you a litmus test for this, okay? For those of you who buy your own groceries and actually live in a populated area, think to yourself, gallon of milk, eggs, bread, do you know the price of that item at every place within a reasonable driving area around you that you could get? Unless you live in a place where there's only one shop, more often than not, the answer is no. Efficient markets assume you do. Now, efficient markets is an assumption that's useful for us. At the end of the term, I'm going to show you what happens if you don't know how everything's working and what happens if you're unsure about prices, etc. But for the first part of the class, we're just going to assume away. We're going to assume everybody knows what's going on. So, okay. Economists tend to get wage premium. When you actually get out and get a job, economics, like engineering, tend to get paid more money. And if there's a recession or a downturn in the economy, sociologists, journalists, other types, they tend to get hurt pretty hard. But economists tend to survive, get hired sooner, tend to get paid a bit more. So there you go. Now, the discipline of economics is generally divided into two big bunches. The first is microeconomics, which is the class we're doing right now. And microeconomics is all about individual decision-making units. So industries, firms, households, sometimes people. Usually we use households instead of people, but occasionally people, individuals. And a lot of the time when people talk about economics, they're usually thinking microeconomics. But there's the other side. The other side is macroeconomics. Macroeconomics looks at things in the big scale. Income, employment and unemployment, the output of the entire country, things that are huge. And these are separate. Let me give you an example. This is a map of the state of Indiana. And in the top kind of center part of Indiana is this county. And I blew up the county map here. And in this county, here is the city of Elkhart, Indiana in red. Now, Elkhart, Indiana is a town, and it's got major employers like Thor Industries and Forest River, among others. Now, Elkhart, Indiana, pretty much the city makes one thing. They make these things, RVs. They make the RVs, they make accessories to go in the RVs. It's the RV industry. You know, when you're driving up the highway, up into the mountains, and you're on this 2-lane road, and you're stuck behind this RV, going putt, trying to get up it. Yeah, good chance that at least that or something in it's made in Elkhart, Indiana. In 2017, 67% of the employment of Elkhart, Indiana came from the RV industry. 67%. Let's be clear. If 67% of your city is in one industry, the other roughly third of your town is supporting that industry. You know, those are the school teachers that educate the kids that work in the RV industry. Those are the grocers that feed the workers that go into, you know, the rest of the town is basically supporting that industry, the workers of that industry. That is the industry. Now, in 2008 and 2009, the employers in Elkhart, Indiana, they pretty much had their microeconomics right. They were making the correct number of goods for their market. They were employing the correct number of people. They were paying fairly. They were, you know, they weren't wasteful generally. It was pretty well, they got their microeconomics right. However, what we call the Great Recession, which until the COVID recession was the worst macroeconomic thing we had seen since the Great Depression. Now we have the COVID recession to fit that bill. But in 2008 and 2009, it was the worst that they had seen in a generation. It nearly wiped the entire town off the map. People weren't buying RVs. Why? Because they just lost their job. I mean, if you had the money, you might buy one to live in, but in general, people weren't interested in taking vacations. They were worried about, am I going to eat? Am I going to have a home? there was a macroeconomic tidal wave that nearly wiped the entire town out. So you can get your microeconomics right and your macroeconomics wrong and be devastated if you're a business. The inverse is also true. I listen to a lot of conference calls for businesses telling you what their results are and how they did in the business, and et cetera. And a lot of times the answer is, oh, our industry is in recession or in depression. No, dude, you're not in recession. It's like Blockbuster Video. Anchorage, Alaska, and there for a while, Bend, Oregon notwithstanding. There was not a macroeconomic recession or depression that was hurting Blockbuster Video. People still watched movies. They just got their business model kneecapped. They were taken out by Netflix and Redbox. And herein is the key idea. If you have your macro right and your micro wrong, you're gone. If you have your micro right and your macro wrong, you could be gone. Now, for those of you worried about the town of Elkhart, Indiana, the government stepped in to help them, the federal government. The town is still there. They're doing okay. But notice both matter. A lot of teachers sometimes can really understand how micro applies when they take economics. But they don't understand macro. And then I explained to them how they could use the dollars, and they're like, oh my goodness, that's brilliant. You're right. That would make a huge difference in my career and in the lives of my students. It's like, exactly. So each of these classes have knowledge. My job is to get it to you and to help you learn it. However, once you have the knowledge, you can also operationalize it. And when you operationalize that knowledge, you can use it in new, innovative ways, maybe ways I didn't think of, and use it to make your life and others around you better. So they look at production in different ways, prices, etc. Now, these two are subdivided even further. Economics is a lot like the Borg from Star Trek. For those of you who know that reference, you two will be somebody. Economics goes out and just kind of grabs other disciplines, brings it in, and says, we're going to work with you now. So behavioral economics, we went out and grabbed psychology, right? Econometrics, they grabbed the statisticians. Economic history, gee, I wonder who they grabbed there. Environmental economics, they grabbed the sustainability and environment guys. Health econ, right now, I'm recording this in 2021. Health econ is a major field of study, and a lot of jobs are going to be there in the next few years as the epidemiologists are working, but policymakers need to figure out, do you fund vaccines? Do you fund treatments? What's the most cost-effective way for society to address pandemics and diseases and everything going on in the wake of the COVID crisis? So we're going to do some of these. We'll do a little bit of a chapter with a little bit of labor economics. We're going to talk about industrial organization, some of the others. So understand, if you're interested, there are upper division classes available in those, but in general, come talk to me if you're interested in some of those. I can steer you towards it. Now, in economics, whenever you make a statement or ask an economic question, these generally come in two types. The first is positive economics. Now, positive economics tries to understand what's going on, but it doesn't make a judgment about it. It's just describing how it works. It doesn't mean that the statement is right. It could be totally factually incorrect, and it's tested and shown to be incorrect. But positive economics, the key idea is there's no judgment. key idea here, without making judgments. Right there. Now, normative economics, and see, that's another example of the board here. Normative economics, we stole the word normative from sociology, norms or values of society. It does the same thing as positive, but then it evaluates them, good or bad, bad or worse, and then sometimes prescribes or says what you should do. Now, in order to decide what is better or worse, you have to have a way of organizing the thoughts or ranking them. Those are your norms. In general, I am going to try to stay away from normative economics. My value system or the way I think things should be valued or categorized might be different than yours. My place as an instructor, I'm not trying to push a value system on you. I'm trying to teach you how the intellectual tools work, how to make those tools work, and how to let it better your lives. What you guys do with them is up to you. So there's one real notable exception, a couple exceptions, where I'm going to stray into normative economics, and I'm doing it to illustrate the tool and how it works in a way that's going to be, pardon me, yawn, I guess I need more caffeine today, in a way that's a little easier I found for students to understand if I do, but I'm not actually advocating a position, I'm trying to illustrate something. So when you are trying to spot a normative, the word should or ought to or wouldn't it be better, those are usually indications that you're staring at a normative statement. So for class, for your exam, do you guys remember Sesame Street? You know, in Sesame Street, they used to have this segment. Which of these things is not like the other? Which of these things just does not belong? And you'd see an apple, a banana, a pear, and a car, right? Expect I'm going to do that to you on your test. I'll give you 3 positives and a normative. You're expected to find the normative, or 3 normatives and a positive. You're expected to find them. There's practice in the review material I gave you. So be sure to work through those to get used to it so that you're kind of prepared for what the first exam is going to be like. But that's what's coming at you. So economics has a lot of assumptions and a lot of ways of thinking to work things together. Classic one is this, ceteris paribus. Now, ceteris paribus is Latin. It means all else equal. Now, ceteris paribus is an assumption. It almost is never true because in reality, so many things are changing in real life that it's hard to see what one change does. We have mathematical ways and other things to do that help us. But almost everything you hear on the news, if it is economic analysis and not just a political talking point, it almost always has ceteris paribus. But ceteris paribus is not always a good idea. So let's talk about SNAP benefits. SNAP benefits stand for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. This is the new school name for food stamps. Now, currently and many years ago, we seem to have this discussion every so often about the minimum wage. Should the minimum wage be increased? I don't care whether you agree or not. That's not the point of this. For a business, most normal businesses, the profit the business makes is equal to how much they can sell whatever they're selling for minus what it costs them to make it. We say revenue minus costs. Okay. Ceteris paribus, if you increase the minimum wage, the profits for a company like for example, Walmart, would normally go down. Not all Walmart employees make minimum wage, but usually it's some wedge above the minimum wage amount. And so if the revenue doesn't change, ceteris paribus, but they have to pay their workers more, that's usually going to reduce profits. Okay. However, economics has found, economists have found something kind of weird. It doesn't happen in Oregon, and it has to do with SNAP benefits. Now, SNAP benefits, these food stamps, you used to actually physically get a stamp, and then you'd just hand them into the grocer, and then they would cut change or whatever and go from there. But people were trading them, selling them, and it was a problem. So now they give you a card. In Oregon, it's the Oregon Trail card, but they have other cards. Each state has their own thing. And the money gets loaded. It's like a debit card. And the money gets loaded onto that card, and then you could go and spend it. In Oregon, the money gets loaded on different days for different people. I was told once, I forget what they said, it was based on the last number of your Social Security, I think. So if your Social Security number was a 2, it'd be on the 2nd day of the month. If it was a 9, it'd be on the 9th day of the month, that kind of thing. But not every state does it that way. Some states load all the money for everybody in the state that gets this benefit on the cards on the same day. Now, in those states, we found something interesting happening. If you go to the big Walmarts, the Walmarts that have the grocery store, at about 10 p.m., 10 o'clock in the evening, the night before, the benefits get loaded at midnight, 12:01 a.m. So at 10 o'clock that evening, if you go to the Walmart, that's reality. It's a madhouse. It's like Black Friday. Literally, some of the Walmarts have had to use their Black Friday operation plans in order to handle the crowds. What's going on? People are hungry. Their families are hungry. They need food, probably cereal and milk for breakfast. The money comes in at 12:01, and they're getting groceries now. And what happens at 12:01? Everybody rushes the checkout counter, and they process and they pay for it with the benefits that just got loaded. Now I want to ask you something. Studies have shown SNAP recipients, the majority of them are working. The vast majority of SNAP recipients actually work for a living. So I want you to think for a second about these people who are standing in line. The grocery shelves are bare because everybody's buying everything. The Black Friday, everybody's in the long, snaking lines kind of idea. These people, if they get an extra $2, $3, or $4 an hour in their paycheck, are they going to spend at least some of their additional money at Walmart where they're shopping now? I mean, seriously. It's probably a bit too far to say that they'd spend all of it. But they're probably not going to just save the money and put it somewhere else. And let's be clear, the revenue's not going to go down. I mean, are these people who are standing in line at 10:01 going to go, no, all right, thank you very much. I shall now take my sustenance from Whole Foods markets now. I no longer need to shop with the peasants at Walmart. I mean, seriously. Are they going to be, no. Few bucks an hour? Even if you're working full time, that's an extra $80 a week. Yeah, it's a lot of money for somebody who's struggling, but that's not going to be, you with me? So if you release ceteris paribus and now allow the revenue of Walmart to go up because some of those people are spending more money at Walmart that they're getting in their jobs, as well as the cost increase, The effect on profit for Walmart is probably a bit unclear. Maybe in some places, they actually get more profit due to a minimum wage increase than they would. Other places, it may be lower. Ceteris paribus is a useful idea to get a nice, clean, simple answer, which is great on TV shows where you need quick, pithy, and to the point. But often reality is a little more complicated than that. Here's another good one, Latin. Who knew you were getting your Latin lesson today? Post hoc ergo propter hoc stands for after it, therefore because of it, usually in time. It's a logical fallacy. The idea is if A came before B, then A caused B, and it's usually wrong. Sometimes it's true, but more often than not, it's wrong. For example, people who die in severe auto accidents oftentimes have paramedics show up at the scene before they died. Therefore, paramedics are killing the auto accident victims, and if we just banned paramedics, people wouldn't die. That's an example of this kind of logical error. Now, these kind of errors happen all the time with sports, with politics. Anybody who's superstitious of sports has this. Oh man, I need to wear my lucky hat, or I can't leave the room. If I leave the room, some event that's happening clear across the country and probably is pre-recorded is going to go around, and post hoc ergo propter hoc. Seriously. Just because one thing happens before it doesn't mean it caused it. Sometimes correlation, when two things move together, does not mean one caused it. So this is a graph from a website. I love this website. It's a lot of fun. It's tylervigen.com. This is a data of the number of PhDs, the number of doctorates awarded in the United States in the discipline of economics. And it is correlated 86% with the number of people in the same year who trip over their own 2 feet and die. Save money or save lives, ban economics? No, one thing has nothing to do with the other. This website's full of these. One of my favorite is per capita consumption of margarine in the United States. And I feel dirty just saying margarine. I don't like margarine. I know some people use it. I'm not a fan. Per capita consumption of margarine in the United States is correlated. It's in the 90s, low to mid 90s, I believe, last I saw, with the divorce rate in the state of Maine. So next time you go to the grocery store and pick up margarine, put it down, get butter instead, save a marriage. Again, one thing has nothing to do with the other. Just because they move together or it looks like there might be a relationship doesn't mean there is. Here's an interesting one. There was a professor at Dartmouth University. His name was Bruce Sacredolt. I love that name. It's up there with Bond, James Bond. Bruce Sacredolt. And how do I say this? Let's say, for example, hypothetically speaking, you were a little bit naughty. And you happen to have naughty friends. The question is this: did you pick your friends because you were naughty, or did you end up with your friends and they corrupted you and made you naughty? Right? Well, chicken and egg. So Bruce Sacredolt up at Dartmouth University, what he decided to do is he took the data of the freshmen. Now, at Dartmouth, all the freshmen are required to live in the dorms, so they all go live in the dorms, and they randomly assign your roommate. So if you're a male, you have the same probability of being assigned a Bill Gates type as you would if you were real being assigned a Forrest Gump type. Random assignment. And so they tracked what happened based upon your roommate with your grades and with your academics. And they found that your roommate actually mattered. Now, you didn't get to choose your roommate. Your roommate was given to you. So they found your grade point average, who your roommate was mattered for your grade point average, how much effort you put in, and shockingly, whether you joined a fraternity, right? So your friends matter. Pick good friends because you're going to end up liking them. They matter for you. By the way, some of you are like staring at these controllers going, oh, how quaint, those are so old. Yeah, at least they're wireless, but yeah, those are our old controllers back in the day. But, right. So whenever you measure economic outcomes, whenever you evaluate an economic proposal or policy, there are basically 4 ways of doing it: efficiency, equity, growth, and stability. Now, I totally love efficiency. The idea of efficiency goes something like this. You have an idea, I have an idea, we get the same stuff, and whoever makes the most wins. They're more efficient. I like it. Most economists spend a lot of time studying efficiency and working with efficiency because efficiency is not touchy-feely. It's empirical. We know how to measure it. We know how to measure its loss or if it goes away. It's not better work per se. We know we get a number. If the number's bigger, then it's more efficient. If it's smaller, it's less efficient. Now, a lot of people use the word better or worse here, think normative economics again, but there's more than one. Efficiency is not the only name of the game. There are other things going on. But efficiency is one metric, and it's honestly often overused, but it's one very important metric in economics. The second metric is equity or fairness. Now, fairness is intrinsically normative. We have positive measures of measuring it, but I'll be honest with you, in the United States, we have a real problem measuring fairness. Here we have 3 lads trying to look at the baseball game. Ask yourself, which of these is fair, the left or the right? Honorable people say the left is fair. Equally honorable people say the right is fair. Okay? If I were to take a survey of the United States and say, how many of you want policies that are more fair? Like 80, 90% of Americans would say, I want policies that are more fair. I still want to meet the people who are like, no, I totally want a more unfair policies. No, but generally people want policies that are more fair. But then when you get into the particulars of the proposal, left or right here, they're like, oh no, that's totally unfair. That's not very fair. It should be, we don't agree on what the definition of fairness is. So the challenge in economics of using fairness as a metric is that we don't agree. But fairness is important. And so sometimes people are willing to accept less efficiency or lower efficiency numbers in the name of fairness. That's okay. That's a societal choice. That's the realm of the political scientists. Society deciding what's important and figuring it out and doing it peacefully. That's a political science question, not per se an economic one. Economic growth. Now, pardon, I'm going to talk about politicians for a minute. There is nothing like weed, really good weed, to politicians like economic growth. Seriously, we just got through an election when I'm recording this, and a lot of the election was which candidate can outgrow the other. And it's like, dude, I've got awesome economic growth over here. vote for me and get this growth. Another candidate's like, no, man, your growth is shit. No. Oh, my growth is so good. You got to try my growth. I mean, seriously, that's what these guys do. All right. So let's before we get into a grow off with these people, let's have a real conversation about economic growth. The U.S. Army vet, his name is Robert Solow. He was an economist who studied economic growth. He got the Nobel Prize for it. We know if you have more people, your economy gets bigger, can grow more. This isn't hard. Think of it this way. If you have a business with 10 employees working, generally speaking, you're going to be able to produce less than if you had 100 employees. Ding! So if you have 100,000 workers in your economy and suddenly you get 150,000 workers, you're going to grow your economy, generally speaking. So we know people matter. We also know the tools matter. If you have an accounting firm doing taxes, right? If you have, say, 10 employees, but only one computer, you're going to be doing fewer tax returns and fewer accounting records than if you had 10 computers. Tools matter. So what Robert Solow did is he backed out population, because we know that, and we backed out tools, we know that. And then he looked at the economy, and there was this growth that was happening that wasn't related to tools and wasn't related to the population, and that's what he called economic growth. And he called it, and I'm quoting Solow now in the paper that he got the Nobel Prize for, quote, the measure of our ignorance, end quote. The measure of our ignorance. So let's be really clear here. The discipline of economics knows a lot less about economic growth than sometimes it lets on. And it knows a hell of a lot less than the politicians think they know. Okay? But growth is important. You think about it. We also have stability. Now, for those of you with a car, I want you to think about something. Imagine gasoline prices, petrol prices, would go from what they are today up to $20 a gallon, and it would stay there for some length of time. You wouldn't know how long, could be months, could be weeks, could be a day or two. And then it would drop back to where it's at. And then it'd stay down there for a while, who knows how long, and then it'd bounce, like overnight, back up to $20 a gallon, right? So it'd be bouncing back and forth. Would you live your life exactly the same way as you do today? I wouldn't. When prices are low, I'd be constantly filling up. Why? Because I want as much. I'd probably have gas cans that I'd store. And if the prices were low, I'd fill up the gas cans. And then when prices were high, I would drain the tank, holding out as long as I could, and then I'd only want to fill up just the minimum in case prices went down soon. Very, very different than the way I live my life today. Sometimes a more stable outcome is preferable to a more efficient outcome on paper, because in the instability, how much does it cost me to get gas cans? What's the time value of my money for constantly going to the petrol station and getting $2, $3, $5 of petrol every single day? What's that worth to me? Sometimes a more stable outcome, even if it be slightly less efficient, can be preferable. Now, in these four metrics, efficiency, equity, growth, and stability, proposals oftentimes advocate for more or one of these, and they're willing to give up a little bit of one of the others. I have examples of this, of politicians doing this. Quite honestly, I'm a little tired of politics right now, so I'm not using them. But if you want to talk or come to office hours or ask during homework help sessions or whatever, feel free. I'll be glad to talk to you about it. But many times, if you take any economic proposal and you distill it down, it's usually more or less of one of the four, and you're willing to give up or pay for it with less of one of the others, at least. So this book, as we go throughout the term, is step by step. If you miss a chapter, make sure you go back, listen to that lecture, understand it before you try to go on. Otherwise, you're going to get lost fast. So this is an appendix here about graphs, how to graph x-axis, x-intercept, y-intercept, x-axis, y-axis. You should know this at this stage for the class. Please go through the appendix to Chapter 1 in your book. If you have questions, come see me. You're expected to know this. Now, this equation, the triangle here that's the Greek letter delta. It means change. Change in y or change in x. We call this rise over run. We take the second point, y2 minus y1. That's how much the rise changed. And x2 minus x1 is how far left and right it changed. You will likely need this equation on your first test, so get used to it. I have some practice in the review questions. Be sure you look at those. So thank you very much for humoring me and listening to me. I appreciate your time. If you have questions, please call me. Come see me during office hours. I'd love to talk to you. Have a good day.